Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harman. Great to see you all. Thanks so much for joining us. My goodness, Jeff's been getting a lot of questions about another potential lockdown. So he's going to hit on that for sure. And then just the craziness that continues to go on in this world. Jeff's got it right when he says we are in the matrix. This is the true matrix. Forget about Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. This is the true matrix. So let's get started, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, clearly I did. I looked at that, and I think we had a couple of viewers ask that question as well. And I've had other people see, because there was this report out that something about, this TSA agent had proclaimed that we're going to get another pandemic. And, there is a little bit of truth to this because there's a major studio. I can't remember which one it was. I thought it was Disney or one of them down there that basically had said, you got to wear masks. There's a new mask mandate. So I'm like, okay, here we go. And I still see people with face diapers all over the place. But, I looked at the astrology. I have to say, deception definitely looks like it's in the wind, but I'm not seeing anything that's going to rival or come close to what we experienced back in 2020. Two reasons. One, the interrogation chart doesn't say it. And you have to remember, that whole event happened exactly on a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. I knew something was coming, and I knew it was big, and it was. Also, we had something known as a Kalasarpa Yoga. Now, people may say, Kalasarpa what? But that's when all the planets are in between the moon's north and south eclipse points. We don't have that right now. In fact, we're not going to have it anytime soon. It's a ways down the line. You always get them frequently, but we don't have it right now. So I see more deception, political deception. I also see more things like more information coming out, more deception. I still think Biden is going to have the walls closing in on him. And I think we could see more trouble, violence, trouble, things like that, more rise in crime. I mean, gas is steadily eking its way up. I can't believe what we're paying for regular gas. And I don't think we're ever going to see it go back down again. How could it when he's shutting off the faucet on almost everything out there? And which brings me, I wanted to do a little spoof today. A relative of mine, my sister-in-law, Terry, sent me an incredibly funny, and I want to put some of these up here. It's absolutely mind-boggling how funny this is because it really calls to light the absolute stupidity that's going on. I mean, when people start pulling in and they realize, oh my God, your new battery is going to cost, $15,000 or whatever it's going to cost for your Tesla or your new vehicle. And the other thing they're figuring out too is that, the power grid in California as well as other places are failing. And now they're asking you to not charge your electric car and say, okay. So, and then the other thing is, I want, this is a great little thing I'll put on the screen here. Batteries do not make electricity. They never have, and they never will, right? At least not the batteries we know of so far, unless they have dilithium crystals in them. So they store electricity, folks, which means they have to be loaded onto. And what's interesting is those are primarily charged by coal, uranium, natural gas powered plants and diesel generators. One of the most humorous things, I got to put this up. They're showing up all over the place now. The new Tesla charging stations have a diesel generator sitting next to them. And they did the math on this, and they actually said that it takes about somewhere around 3 hours to fully charge your electric car, right? Okay, so the diesel generator that's running it in these remote locations, when they do the math at how long it takes and how much energy it takes, it actually works out to be 5.6 miles to the gallon. When you figure out what diesel gas it took, or diesel fuel it took to charge the car, and then what mileage you're getting out of it. Now, I don't know about you, but most semis who, pull thousands, 80,000 pounds worth of weight are getting close to that mileage, between 4 to 6 miles to the gallon. So this is virtual insanity. Virtual insanity. Would you not agree?
It sure is. I mean, That's a perfect example of virtual insanity.
This is way past stupid, folks, way past stupid. And then, when you look at the climate change stuff, I mean, we've had climate change indexes easily this high in the 30s. And they also claim many other times before, it's just they don't have the records to dispute it. But I can tell you, my opinion is it's the grand solar minimum. And many scientists have also echoed this, that this is fear. And I love on the news, you ever see that, oh my God, the heat, it's so atrociously hot. Well, folks, it's summer. It's summertime. This is what happens in the summertime. I lived in Tucson. I remember pulling into Tucson, God, in the late 70s on a motorcycle. It was frying heat. 112 degrees. I was really happy I got rained on. And it was, incredibly hot. This is nothing new. I mean, the sun goes way north in the summertime, right? Of course, it peaks at the summer solstice. And then, of course, the heat follows. So you're being duped, folks. The tables are rigged. The tables are tilted. They're definitely mind controlling us. So just a little bit of humor here.
It's so crazy because what you're talking about is the fear factor, right? That really works. It's the fear factor.
Yep. And, I hate to say this, but here's another little story that's not so pleasant. But my brother told me that he had a friend who had a Tesla. And the Tesla flipped upside down or something like that. And the doors automatically locked and the battery caught on fire. Now, I bet a lot of people have been hearing about this. If you have an electric car or an electric bike and those lithium ion batteries catch on fire, I got news for you. You're not going to put them out. Walk away. The fire department says the only thing they can do is just cordon off the area and keep people away. You can't put them out. Water, dry chemical, forget it. They don't go out. Why? Because they supply their own oxygenated fuel. So the only way they go out is when they burn off everything. And talk about pollution, talk about a carbon footprint. You ever see the black smoke coming off these? So, just a little bit of FYI about your electric vehicle. And they often catch fire when they're charging. So really got to be careful. This whole thing is just not there yet, It
really isn't there yet. It isn't. And they're really pushing for it, right? Aren't they? I mean, we have something else to put up on the screen when we get into AI a little bit. What we saw happening downtown with this AI, operated thing that really we had to do a triple take because we thought it was a person.
Yeah, I'm going to put this on the screen right now. Yeah, look at this. I mean, when she blinks and the motions, it's eerie how human this looks.
That's scary.
Yeah, right. Well, it kind of is. And even in China, they've got newscasters right now that they look so real.
It sure is creepy. That's where everything's headed. That's where they want to, the direction they're trying to push us in. And we've got to stand strong with that, right? Because that's not good at all. I think the thing to stand strong with is this country's Constitution and Bill of Rights. Again, I keep bringing this up in many podcasts. When you look at the foresight that the founding fathers had, absolutely ingenious. Why? Because there is nothing more important to all of us than the basic rights and freedoms accorded in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. I don't care what your race, your creed, all that stuff, doesn't matter. If you're human, you have these rights. And at least in this country right now. And what we're finding, I also wanted to bring up another person that I had great respect for. Her name was Ayn Rand. She was a Russian journalist, and she had wrote an author. She had wrote a book called Atlas Shrugs. Many people may have heard of it. And it is eerie how close many of the things she wrote about is actually happening right now, just like the George Orwell book, 1984. This is exactly what we're seeing implemented. And getting back to astrology, this is exactly what the astrology showed from 2020 forward. Both the hits of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which brought in fascism and COVID, and the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction on the winter solstice, which I keep talking about because it's so significant. And that brings us to
our next section.
Yeah, let's get into our weekly forecast, Jeff.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, and the current energies that are going on. Well, we know Venus has been retrograde. And just to touch on the Maui fires a little bit more, Venus retrograde, remember I said it is the Lucifer falling or the Quetzalcoatl myth where strange events happen. Well, I can't think of anything that's coming up to be more strange. The more people that look at this, journalists and many different investigators have said, there's a lot of enigmas and unanswered questions about the Maui fires. And a lot of people they call, quote unquote, missing. Maybe they're dead. Let's hope not. But I don't know where they went. I mean, did they go for a swim to the next island? It's 100 something miles. I highly doubt that. And it's horrible why they're not really calling this the tragedy fully that it is. I mean, how can people be missing on an island like that? And a lot of them are children, from what I hear. And it was horrible what happened. And this happened precisely as Venus was retrograde in its occidental phase, going to a square of Uranus. And then it combusted the sun. Remember, I said this is an inferior conjunction, which means Venus passes between the Earth and the sun. It's its strongest phase. And, the superior ones are on the other side. They're not as strong. So this one was really a very powerful and strange event, which really was a tragic thing for so many people. And of course, now we're seeing this huge land grab and all this other crazy stuff that's going on. So very, very interesting time. And I also want to mention, we mentioned last week that Mercury went retrograde literally on the 23rd, right? It's a couple days ago. And very powerful. Now, this is an interesting Mercury retrograde. I kind of left this out until this podcast. Mercury is in a sustained retrograde trine to Jupiter. You might say, okay, great. What does that mean? Well, Mercury and Jupiter is really good for intellectualism. This is a wonderful time to not only rethink, retrace, and rework, but also you may find some true genius comes through in your plans and things that you want to implement, because there's nothing better than Mercury, the planet of logic, trining Jupiter, the planet of spiritual expansion, growth, and life force energy. And this goes on all the way up until September 4th. This is a long time. And that's because Mercury's slowing, stationing, going backwards while staying in this sustained trine in its retrogradation phase, meaning going backwards until about 4 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, or if you're on the East Coast, about 7 a.m. On September 4th. And that's an interesting scenario too, because Venus goes direct the day before September 3rd. So we have a lot of crisscrossing of energies here, which always happens in astrology. It's a very complex amalgam of geometric aspects is all it really is. It's astronomy, truly is. So this is kind of an interesting thing. And I like that because Mercury will go into the sun on September 6th. So expect potentially this next week, a time where a lot of intellectual prowess comes out. Pay attention to your ideas. Keep your notepads, your recorders, whatever you use, because the dewdrops from heaven just might be falling more. This is also an elegant time to back up your data, rearrange things clean. I know I'm doing that right now. I'm rearranging all kinds of stuff and trying to organize, put things in cases and everything else. So it's a really good time for strategies right now. And take advantage of that. You'll really enjoy that. And this is for everybody. Now, it's going to affect everybody different depending on how that configuration aligns up with your own birth chart. But overall, this is really a kind of a productive and wonderful Mercury retrograde energy up until about the 6th when it goes into the conjunction of the sun. Then Mercury will go what we call oriental, meaning it's a fancy word, just means rises before the sun. And we'll touch more about that on the next podcast next week. But Mercury doesn't go direct until September 16th.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're sending this positive message about Mercury retrograde, because so many people think, oh my gosh, it's disaster time. And it doesn't have to be. right? It doesn't have to be.
Right.
So much of it is changing your mindset too. So Leah, let's put our minds on the things that you were just mentioning. We said it last time, redoing, rethinking, all of those re's for the retrograde. Let's turn it into something positive.
That's the whole key. This is just energies. It's like they teach us in martial arts. If somebody's about to kick you in the head, well, you can stand there and get kicked, or you can move to the side. And of course, your opponent's off balance. You see, you can use this to your advantage. And again, maybe in a more positive light, I would say that this is a time when you can re-examine plans. You can re-examine the way you're approaching things. Like if you got stuff that needs to get done that's, been laying around and you got to organize it, now's a good time to do that, especially between now and the 6th. It really technically between now and the 4th is good, but between now and the 6th is a good time to really focus on that. Repair whatever's broken. Start looking into things. Start, cleaning stuff up and take advantage of this energy, because just like a surfer, if you're waiting for a wave and it's not there, you're going to bob up and down. But when the wave comes like this one, ride it, because you can get a lot done with it.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask something about the Venus retrograde and the Maui fire, because, we've have fires blazing right now in British Columbia. Then there's the fire in Spain. So
that's right. That's what I was saying is, we only focus on what the mind control news tells us to focus on. And granted, Maui was horrible, and my heart goes out to all those people and the families that lost loved ones in there and property and everything else. It's just horrible. But there was a lot of things that probably went on in other parts of the world that, is hard to focus on because, again, they're not telling us to focus on it. So, this is definitely a time of weird happenings, and a lot of stuff happens. Oh, I heard about, again, some issues of a plane landing without landing gear at John Wayne Airport. So this is a time when things are really weird. Even though Mercury's doing this very positive trine to Jupiter, it's still a time to pay very close attention to mechanical things, driving, walking around, ambulating, whatever it is you do, handling machinery. This is a time where you want to put your focus more on, keeping safe and taking care of dangerous situations, because it is definitely a cocktail that exacerbates this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the pandemic thing, I get they're going to cause more trouble in other areas. I don't know that they're going to be fully successful in implementing anything to the degree that we've seen with COVID. There is some variants I'm here that are coming around. There's always little things releasing, but I don't see it, from what I can tell in the interrogation, ever getting to anything like that mass, shutdown that we saw back in 2020.
Well, thank God.
Yeah,
Thank God.
Not at this time, yeah.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks so much for this. Short and sweet. Thank you all for joining us this week. Take good care of yourselves. Stay positive. Stay healthy. And we'll see you next week on Astrology Today with Jeff Harman.
Thanks for watching.